Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into one of the most intense and tragic stories in the entire Bible, the civil war that almost wiped out the tribe of Benjamin. This isn't just an ancient tale, it's a powerful lesson about justice, unity, and what happens when a society loses its moral compass. Our story starts in a time described as moral chaos in Israel, a period when everyone did what was right in their own eyes. It's in this setting that a horrific crime takes place in the city of Gibeah, a town in the territory of Benjamin. A Levite and his concubine are traveling and stop there for the night. What happens next is truly shocking. A group of wicked men from the city demand the Levite be handed over to them. Instead, his concubine is sent out and subjected to a night of brutal violence, and by morning, she is dead on the doorstep. Absolutely devastated and filled with rage, the Levite does something incredibly gruesome. He dismembers her body into 12 pieces and sends one piece to each of the 12 tribes of Israel. It was a shocking, visceral message that could not be ignored. It was his way of screaming, "Look at what has happened. This cannot stand." And the tribes of Israel responded. The message was clear. A terrible evil had been committed in their land, and something had to be done. So, all the other 11 tribes of Israel gathered together as one at a place called Mizpah. It was a massive assembly, a united front demanding justice. The Levite stood before them and told his horrifying story. The outrage was universal. The leaders of Israel decided they had to act. They turned to the tribe of Benjamin and made a very clear demand. "Hand over the wicked men from Gibeah so we can purge this evil from Israel." This was their chance to do the right thing, to deliver justice and restore order. But this is where the story takes a dark turn. The tribe of Benjamin refused. Instead of handing over the criminals, they chose to protect them. They prioritized tribal loyalty over justice. They decided to shield their own, even though they were guilty of an unspeakable crime. By doing this, they essentially made themselves accomplices. This refusal transformed a local crime into a national crisis. The other 11 tribes were left with no choice. If Benjamin wouldn't deliver justice, they would have to enforce it. And so, the stage was set for a devastating civil war. Before marching into battle, the Israelites did something crucial. They went to seek guidance from God. They asked, "Who shall go up first to fight against the Benjamites?" God told them that the tribe of Judah should lead the charge. With divine direction, they felt confident, but the first day of battle was a disaster. The Israelites suffered a crushing defeat, losing 22,000 soldiers. They were stunned. They had a just cause. They had God's permission. So why did they lose? Heartbroken, they went back to God, weeping and asking if they should continue the fight against their brother tribe. God told them, "Go up against them." So, on the second day, they attacked again, and again, they were defeated. This time, they lost another 18,000 men. The losses were staggering. The Israelites were in despair. They had lost 40,000 soldiers in just 2 days. It seemed like their quest for justice was failing miserably. These initial defeats were a hard lesson. Perhaps they were relying too much on their own strength and numbers, forgetting that true justice and victory come from God alone. They needed to fully rely on divine wisdom, not just human understanding. After the second crushing defeat, the Israelites were at a breaking point. They went back before the Lord, but this time, their approach was different. They fasted, they wept, and they offered sacrifices. They humbled themselves completely. They asked again, "Shall we go out once more to battle against our brother Benjamin, or shall we stop?" This time, God's answer was different. He said, "Go, for tomorrow I will give them into your hand." It was a promise of victory. With this divine assurance, the Israelites changed their strategy. They realized that brute force wasn't working. They needed a smarter plan, one guided by God. They decided to set an ambush, a tactic that had been used successfully in the past, like when Joshua conquered the city of Ai. The plan was clever. The main army would approach Gibeah as before and pretend to be defeated again. They would retreat, luring the overconfident Benjamite soldiers out of their fortified city and into the open. Meanwhile, a large force of Israelite soldiers was hiding in ambush all around Gibeah. Their job was to wait until the city was left undefended and then storm it. The signal for the ambush was a huge plume of smoke rising from the city. As planned, the Israelites advanced, and the Benjamites, filled with pride from their previous victories, rushed out to meet them. The Israelite army immediately turned and fled, drawing the Benjamites further and further away from the safety of their city walls. The Benjamites thought, "They are running from us as they did before," and pursued them relentlessly. But this was all part of the plan. Once the Benjamites were drawn out into the open, the hidden Israelite forces sprang their trap. They rushed into the now empty city of Gibeah and set it on fire. A massive column of smoke billowed up into the sky. This was the signal. When the main Israelite army saw the smoke, they stopped their retreat and turned to face the Benjamites. At the same time, the Benjamites looked back and saw their city in flames. They were caught, trapped between the main army in front of them and the ambush force behind them. Panic and terror set in. Their confidence shattered, and the battle turned into a slaughter. The consequences for the tribe of Benjamin were catastrophic. The Israelite forces, fueled by their losses and a sense of divine justice, showed little mercy. They pursued the fleeing Benjamites across the territory. The battle was brutal. By the end of the conflict, the tribe of Benjamin was almost completely annihilated. The numbers are staggering. Out of their entire fighting force, only 600 men managed to escape. They fled into the wilderness and hid at a place called the Rock of Rimmon. The rest of the tribe, men, women, and children in the cities, were wiped out. When the dust settled and the fighting was over, the Israelites looked at what they had done, and a new wave of emotion swept over them, profound grief. They had won the war for justice, but the cost was almost unbearable. They had nearly destroyed one of their own 12 tribes. They gathered again and lamented, "Today a tribe is cut off from Israel." They had acted to purge evil, but in doing so, they had created a new crisis. How could they let the tribe of Benjamin, one of the foundational families of their nation, disappear forever? The problem was made even more complicated by an oath they had taken in their anger. At the assembly in Mizpah, before the war began, they had sworn that none of them would ever give their daughters in marriage to a Benjamite. This meant that even if the 600 surviving men returned, they would have no wives and the tribe would still die out. The Israelites were caught between their righteous anger and their desire for their nation to remain whole. They had to find a way to preserve the tribe of Benjamin without breaking their solemn oath. So the elders of Israel came up with a plan. They started by investigating who among the tribes hadn't shown up to the assembly at Mizpah when the call for justice was made. They discovered that no one from the city of Jabesh Gilead had come. In the context of their unified front against evil, this non-participation was seen as a serious offense. So, they sent an army against Jabesh Gilead. They defeated the city but were given a specific instruction: spare all the unmarried young women. From this raid, they found 400 virgins. These women were not under the oath, so they could be given as wives to the surviving Benjamites. This provided wives for 400 of the 600 men, but they were still 200 short. The elders devised a second, rather creative plan to solve the problem without technically breaking their oath. There was an annual festival to the Lord held at Shiloh. The elders told the remaining 200 Benjamite men to hide in the vineyards near Shiloh. When the young women of Shiloh came out to dance during the festival, each man was to rush out, seize a wife for himself, and take her back to the land of Benjamin. The elders reasoned that if the men took wives for themselves, the fathers of the women wouldn't be giving their daughters, and so the oath would not be broken. It was a clever, if morally ambiguous, loophole. With these two plans, wives were provided for all 600 surviving men. The tribe of Benjamin was saved from extinction. They were able to return to their land, rebuild their cities, and continue their lineage. The story concludes with a powerful and recurring phrase: "In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes." This final line serves as a summary of the entire era. The horrific crime, the brutal war, the near annihilation of a tribe, and the desperate measures to save it, all were symptoms of a society that had abandoned divine standards and was operating on human emotion and flawed judgment. So what are the big takeaways from this intense story? First, it's a powerful illustration of the devastating consequences of sin and moral decay. What started with a few wicked men in one city spiraled into a national catastrophe that almost destroyed a whole tribe. It shows how unresolved sin can infect and corrupt an entire community. Second, it highlights the absolute necessity of justice. The other tribes knew they couldn't just ignore the evil in their midst. They had a communal responsibility to confront it, even when it was painful. However, it also serves as a warning that justice must be tempered with mercy and guided by divine wisdom, not just human rage. Their initial approach led to massive bloodshed, and they had to humble themselves before God to find the right path. And finally, this story underscores the importance of unity and reconciliation. After the terrible war, the Israelites lamented the loss of their brother tribe. Their efforts to save Benjamin show a deep-seated desire to preserve the wholeness of their nation. It's a reminder that even after the harshest judgment, the ultimate goal should be restoration and healing. It's a complex and challenging story, but its lessons on accountability, justice, and the need for righteous leadership are as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the Bible's most powerful narratives. Let me know your thoughts on this story in the comments below. See you in the next video, and God bless.